Welcome to the Ecom 80/20 podcast, the show for brands looking to compete and win at selling online by building better customer relationships. Hosted by Isaac Hyman and Jaco Rosenberg, co-founders of Highflyer Digital and marketing experts for 7, 8, and 9-figure brands, we'll reveal, discuss, and demystify the secret strategies that the top 1% use to acquire, convert, and retain customers better. Our mission is to help level the playing field and help you build more profitable, predictable, and scalable revenue streams for your business. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Ecom 80/20 podcast. I'm your host, Jaco Rosenberg, with my partner, Isaac Hyman, and we help small businesses work smarter, not harder. Today, we have a special guest, Chase Clymer, who is the co-founder and CEO of Electric Eye, which is a e-commerce agency. He also is the host of the Honest Ecommerce podcast, where he helps online store owners with honest, actionable advice to increase their sales and grow their business. Chase has started off as a musician. We'll get into that a little bit later. And in order to pay his bills, he turned to e-commerce, where he also started his agency, the Electric Eye. The Electric Eye, Chase will tell us a little bit more about that, but they create marketing strategies that help e-commerce stores focus on the KPIs to have the biggest impact on sales. So Chase, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Great. So why don't you go into that a little bit? Isaac is our resident musician, so he'll pick your brain about that. Tell us what kind of music you used to play and how that didn't pan out for you.
Yeah. So obviously when I was little, I wanted to be a rock star. Learned how to play guitar when I was like 11 or 12. I joined a band. I actually played bass in the band. And we kind of did the whole punk rock scene of things, toured the country about 5 or 6 times. We signed a record deal, put out a couple albums, but we kind of just hit a peak, and we weren't really going to get to that next level without really doubling down on what we were doing. And the thing with a band is it's a lot like a business. Everyone's got to have that same vision, that same North Star, and they didn't, right? So some people went off and joined other bands, some people did other passions, and that was that, and that was fine. It was a fantastic time in my life, but the whole time I was doing that band did not pay the bills. I was like doing digital marketing stuff. I had a couple of clients that were kind of all over the place at that time, but I was just kind of like learning stuff and figuring out what I liked and didn't like to do. Funny thing actually though, is when I was in the band, that's when me and my business partner met, because him and I designed our band's album art together. So that was like the first projects that we ever did together. And then we were just friendly kind of the whole time. And so when he left his e-commerce startup, I think he left after I was out of the band, but he was just freelancing and making every mistake in the world. Right. And I was like, dude, I've done this forever. Like, let me help you out. And we just like stumbled into kind of this kind of cool world of Shopify and e-commerce. Next thing we knew, we had like half a dozen clients, and we're like, well, I guess this is a thing we're doing now. And then now we're here.
Right. Exactly. So what was the name of your band? We're going to check this up afterwards.
Yeah. Everyone, I always leave it out, but then people ask to follow. All right. So the band was called City Lights. We were a pop punk band from Columbus, Ohio. There's a bunch of stuff up on Spotify. You can find music videos of me 100 pounds ago.
Nice.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. You took a journey from musician to e-commerce. Being an aspiring musician myself, I'm more of a Rage Against the Machine, not necessarily punk, but maybe they're related. I don't know. But it's fascinating. You have to be really creative when it comes to e-commerce. Did you feel music really played a good role in how you scaled up?
I mean, I think it was just the DIY aspect of things, because like we didn't have any money, so you kind of had to do things, just figure it out, right? And so that attitude has stuck with me throughout my whole life, and I've like always kind of been like an entrepreneur and never really scared of a challenge, and always like creatively solving problems. And so that's like really what helped shine and get our business off the ground there at the beginning.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your podcast. We'll get to that a little bit more at the end, but tell us the kind of things you share with your audience.
Absolutely. So we've been doing the podcast for 2 or 3 years now. And basically these days I've kind of really focused in on telling the founder's story. So the interviews that I have, it's usually me and I'm talking to a merchant, usually a founder or co-founder, or somebody that's kind of in the C-suite if it's a more popular brand. Like this isn't out yet, but gonna have one of the from Smile Direct Club, right? So nice household name on the show. So I'm really excited about that. But basically, I just ask questions that kind of about like the journey, right? So like, where'd the idea come from? Like, how long was it from idea to actual product? Like, how'd you get your first customers? And how I built this for Shopify stores. Like, that's the simplest way to explain it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're doing similar things here, but nice to know that there's a lot out there. So, and your agency is called Electric Eye. How did you come up with that name? That's pretty cool.
It is a Judas Priest song, actually. So a lot of the founding team were all big music and metalheads specifically. So that was when we had like those half a dozen clients at the beginning there, and we were like, we just need a name, and like it doesn't matter. And we had like a list of 6 different names, and they were all like classic metal band songs, to be honest. And we're like, that one's like the least satanic-y, so we'll just go with that one.
That's fascinating. Yeah, it's sometimes you have to really take a lot of inspiration from many different places. And it's funny because you mentioned that you came from a DIY background, and now you're dealing with a lot of owners and founders of brands. And your podcast is called Honest Ecommerce. Do you feel that in order to be a great e-commerce startup, you really gotta kind of bootstrap it and really kind of pull yourself up and really start from the ground up in order to succeed these days? Or do you feel you need to get more venture capital funding and just get fundraising going? What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, so here's the honest truth: is there is no one way to do it. There's no right way to do it. But there's just keep doing it, and it will work out if you've got product market fit. If your product solves a problem, and there's people that want that thing, right? So I think like that kind of 0 to 1, that startup range for the direct to consumer e-commerce world, which is literally like, I think like that $0 to $1 million in revenue is that range. I think, yeah, that's that. You got to be scrappy founder. You got to be bootstrapped. You have to do it yourself. Kind of, you have to learn at least what you're talking about. You can't just outsource everything and wish success, especially if you don't have any money to go along with it, which is a lot of founders. And, that 0 to 1 phase, you need to be focused specifically on getting feedback from your product, from your customers about your product. And then you need to be focused on your offer and your marketing. Just how can you consistently get, that's the only thing you should focus on at the beginning. And then your challenges get different as you kind of start to scale from like, how do I go from 1 million to 10 million? That's when you are really going to start looking into expanding your team, be that with actual full-time hires or contractors or agencies or what have you. I think, that $1 million mark is arbitrary. It could be a little bit before that. It could be a little bit after that. But really the first challenge is you got to make sure that people want to buy your product and you can find where those people are.
Wow, that's great. I came from the background of, and I think we talked about this before, about photography. I came from some of the top 1% of the retailers out there in the marketplace. And I guess I'm a little spoiled because a lot of our clients are also kind of like 10 million plus type of brands. And they really are mature in that kind of mature phase. But then you have the direct to consumer where about 90% of the brands, according to McKinsey, was about 1 million or less. So, that's such a big difference, and it's fascinating to hear your perspective on that. And how do they get from that 1 to 10 million and then 10 million plus? Must be hard.
Yeah, so that's a challenge that we kind of have faced a lot at the agency. So we kind of wrote an ebook on it that should be out hopefully by the end of the summer. I'm in the final stages of editing it. So we've got this concept at the agency called the brand scaling framework, right? And so we just try to just simplify the things that spend your energy on, right? It's because energy and time, like those things are constants. You can never get more. So the 3 KPIs that matter, we believe, are your conversion rate, your average order value, and your sessions. And we use those terms because those are the ones you can find on the back end of your Shopify store. There are varying terms out there like traffic or whatever, but it's all the same stuff, right? Okay, so you look at these 3 terms within whatever, kind of metric you want or time frame, right? So we usually do last 30 days at the agency. But so if you take your conversion rate, your average order value, and your sessions, and you multiply them together, you're basically going to get whatever your sales were during that time frame. So now you just kind of established your baseline, right? And then so now what you should do is you should systematically improve each of those KPIs. So you should probably, find whichever one's your weakest and kind of dive in there. Well, the one thing though about this is like everyone usually goes straight to the third one, which is sessions. And they're like, we're just going to dump a bunch of money into Facebook ads, which is a tactic, I guess, but it depends on how good you are at Facebook ads, how good the person you're hiring is at Facebook ads, your margin on your product, like how competitive the space is. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, right? But the number one way to increase your return on ad spend isn't getting a better advertiser. It's making your website better.
For sure.
Yeah, oh man, that's so true. And actually, Yakov, you're on that side of the business where conversion rate optimization is so critical to really everything.
Yeah, it's you nailed it. It's making your website as best as it possibly could be. Landing page, product page, checkout page, everything that's involved in the process. You got to improve, because if you can't get people to take action when they're on your website, then you're not making any money as an e-commerce store. It's just the bottom line, right? They're not just going to buy on Facebook or just on Instagram or whatever every other platform you're putting it on. But if your website's not in optimal performance, then you're dead in the water.
Yeah, the best advertising in the world won't solve for a bad experience. Like that's just people. It needs to make sense. It needs to answer their questions, and they need to feel. It needs to be trustworthy, right? This is a lot of the challenges that brands face. Usually in that like $0 to $1 million range, their website is just some theme they found, and they made a few customizations, installed a bunch of apps, uninstalled a bunch of apps, left a bunch of spaghetti in their code. That thing's kind of slow. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on. They don't even use the website anymore, but like they don't know how weird it is at this point. But those are the startup problems. But as you start to really narrow in on where these little incremental percentage increases matter, is really in that $1 million to $10 million range. Before that, spending as much time in finding those little wins doesn't really matter as much. But once you kind of get to that economy of scale where it really does change, like a 10% improvement here or there can be like hundreds or thousands of dollars in additional profit per month.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. And it's just amazing to know that, these small little things that people tend to overlook, also for like vanity metrics that sometimes they don't understand or aren't able to empower or scale, are kind of like, clogging up their mindset. And I think historically, Yakov and I have kind of always, I wouldn't say dumbed down, but for lack of a better word, dumbed down the metrics to people and focused on two main things: retention and acquisition, right? That's kind of what e-commerce boils down to from our end. So what would you say is the best split or best approach for scaling e-commerce brands? To where should they focus most of their dollars on, or what should they do to, really think through those two main pillars?
All right, so I'm gonna answer that question twice. First question is gonna be like with budget, like 60 is the minimum, I'd say, in new customer acquisition, maybe even 70 or 80% of your budget into new customer acquisition, as far as like actual dollar spent. If we're talking about like an advertising channel like Facebook or TikTok or whatever you're doing. But for like time, I might flip it and say like spend all your time interviewing your customers and learning more about what drives their decisions and how to make your experience better.
Huge, very important. That's kind of exactly the 80-20 principle, right? Spend most of your time investing in your customers, figuring out what makes them happy, growing their value, and then using that data information to power out getting more for them.
Yeah, I mean, basically the people that are going to tell you exactly what's wrong with your website or with your offer or with your product are people that are buying from you, because they have nothing to lose. They want you to succeed. They've already believed in it enough to give you their cold hard, like their money. And, this is really funny. So one of our coaches, Josh Frank from Test Triggers, he was talking about he was like, I go out to all these conferences and whatnot, and I speak, and I'm like, just add this to your abandoned cart sequence. One sentence, plain text email. It's just, what was the reason you didn't purchase today? And send it to the last, 1,000 abandoned carts. And you're going to see a pattern there, and you're going to be able to fix something. And that's going to improve your conversion rate. And he was like, nobody does it. It's just like, but it's literally ask the people that were at the table that were ready to buy or that have bought, why they bought or why they didn't buy. And you're going to get so much information that you can then use to improve your website to make your conversion rate higher.
Yeah,
ask and you shall receive, right?
Yeah, that's great insight. So Let's go back a little bit towards that, those three metrics that you mentioned. Why did you choose those, and how have you found that they've made the biggest impact on sales?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we have been noodling around with like basically playing in those three KPIs since the business began. Like, so when we started, it was a lot of Facebook advertising for Shopify stores, and then like building better experiences online. But then when I kind of learned more about the math behind e-commerce, like it really boils down to those three KPIs will show your baseline. They'll show that's how you can distill your business down into like one equation for growth. And so once you kind of know that, you can find where your weakest point is within that and try to improve it. And obviously, like anytime you spend time on something, it should improve as long as you're making correct decisions or educated, improvements. So that's why we focus on those. I would say though that one that we jumped around between sessions and conversion rate, but I think the most overlooked one, which we almost overlooked here today, was average order value. There's so much opportunity within increasing average order value on websites, and I think it's because it's also the hardest one to get right. You got to be it's very specific to your product, your price point, your customers, your existing offer. But how you increase your average order value is making a better offer. And the easiest ways to do that is like bundling, cross sells, and upsells. But there isn't like a magic wand to do that. Whereas like, there's like a blanket statement for CRO is make your website faster, right? Like that's an easy thing to do and easy to do. But when it comes to average order value, it's like, okay, well, what's your price point? What's your product, right? Like if I'm buying a $4,000 couch, I probably don't want to BOGO on a $4,000 couch. I don't need two couches. But you got to think of like what complements that to try to increase that cart value. Or, if you're having a struggle to sell it at that price point, like what's kind of the value add to try to drive them to say, well, now that is valuable to me and I want to buy that. So just the strategy around AOV is really fun.
Yeah, AOV is just like exactly like you said, it's very overlooked. People tend to look at it as like, they bought one item and, usually they just say, goodbye after that in some cases. But, getting them to buy again, I know from our side of, retention side, a 5% increase in customer retention could lead to a 95% increase in profits. Do you feel bundling and AOV from a bigger picture is probably more profitable for a brand anyway?
Oh yeah. All right. Here's an actionable example. So we had a customer, we rebuilt their gift shop website, small little mom and pop store in Athens, Ohio, I think. And so in store, they would offer to wrap your present for, I forget how much they'd offer in store. Cause like everything was literally a gift, right? You weren't really buying stuff for yourself here. And so we kind of recreated that experience in the sidecar and in the checkout on this store, which is like wrap this. I think it's $5. Just click a box and like gift wrap it, right? And the margin on that is literally 99%. And the
talking about wrapping
the
paper
redemption
and
rate
about
is
3 minutes
huge.
of time, right?
Yeah, and like they're already paying for the time for the person shipping this product, so it just that right there was just instant free profit.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
that's awesome.
Just the little things.
But that's the thing is like that works for their business, their types of products. Like again, going back to my couch example, I don't want to gift wrap my couch. Like, so you got to, it takes a little strategy to figure out what's going to work for your industry and your products and what your customers want.
Absolutely. So you just going back to your background for a bit. You started off as a freelancer, and then you went into the agency world. How have you found that transition, and what made you change out of the freelancer role and into the agency?
Yeah. Let's see. One, I did not and still don't know what I'm doing, right? The imposter syndrome is real. I think I know a little bit more now than I started, but I mean, it was just, it's weird to start a business, especially for everyone that works at our agency. No one worked at an agency before this. Like none of us came in with knowing how the hierarchy works or the deal structures or anything like that. This is all trial and error to where we got here. Luckily, we found some awesome coaches and mentors along the way that really helped us out. And then here's the secret sauce. all of this exists in books, and your library card is free. That's like where the game changed for us. It was like year 2 or 3 when we started to really like invest in what everyone thinks boring business books. No, those are shortcut books.
They're good. They're
like,
good books.
Yeah, they're shortcuts. I think when we read Traction by Gino Wickman.
Yeah, Traction.
Yeah.
All here.
Yeah. So when we read Traction by Gino Wickman, and then I think shortly after that, or maybe before that, we read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. That's when we became a business. I think the first 2 years are just a fluke. I don't know how we survived, but when that happened, there was a mindset shift, and then we were really doing things. But I think one of the hardest things is now, as we're 5 or 6 years into it, is learning how to be a manager is so difficult, and it is a skill you can learn, but I think some people are more naturally gifted with that than others, and it's a very difficult thing to do. So it's not all kind of roses over here. I'm still learning things as I go.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a year in to High Flyer, but we are combined almost 20 years experience in the marketing world. Agency world, we're less than that. So we are also growing, but yeah, a lot of things to learn as you go. A lot of business process, a lot of the e-commerce process. Everything is you learn more as you do it. We're
Absolutely.
all.
I do want to go back and say something though. Just do it anyway. Ignore all the things I just said. Just do it. Entrepreneurship is awesome. Like you're gonna make mistakes. I'm for it 100% fact you're gonna make mistakes. But who cares? It's not going to bankrupt you. Nothing's going to be that bad. Just figure it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because, a lot of the big philosophies out there, especially in e-commerce, and you probably know this, I mean, for all the big tech companies out there, test, learn, refine is that kind of philosophy where you just jump in, you're learning as you go, right? And you're just kind of, sinking or swimming, but you're still learning. And, I guess you found that to be a good synergy between the brands you manage and also your own agency life.
Yeah, I would say though, I think where I have an unfair advantage is I have a fantastic partner and counterpart to where I'm very like fine with risk. It's like, I'll figure it out, but he's very risk averse. So when it comes to like more difficult decisions, it's a very even playing field, and we really talk it through. But it's good to have a partner in this game that you trust, and you guys both have that vision, that North Star, where the ship's going.
Yeah, that's what Gino Wickman talks about with Traction. You're right. Your EOS model is visionary and implement integrator. And
I'm sure you can guess.
Someone has to be the one to think and dream, and the other one has to be the one to bring them back down to earth a little bit. But it's good, and it's very good.
Absolutely.
Okay, back to e-commerce here. So what have you found, in some of the things that you've dealt with your own agency as well as with your own clients has been the hardest part of building businesses and helping them scale?
Yeah, I think that a lot of brands will get to a certain point organically and through whatever they can do on their own. And then they are getting to that point where they want to start scaling. And I think that one of the things that we noticed a lot with brands was that they didn't really have like a content system built out. So they weren't like ready to actually do Facebook ads at scale, right? Because that is so intense as far as how much creative that you need to burn through and learn from. And, like doing a photo shoot once a quarter, once a month, once a quarter, definitely not enough. Once a month, maybe, depends how much you're spending. But like you really need to get new content, fresh content every week to your advertisers or your internal team members they're like putting these paid ads out there. Then you repurpose that through your socials and through your emails and all of that. Like content is king still. And, a lot of these businesses kind of overlooked that part of it. And then when they started to try to scale, were struggling to produce content at the frequency that they needed to actually scale. So what I would say is make sure you're building a content system like as soon as you can within your e-commerce brand. And like, what does that mean? It's like, all right, well, internally, you guys should have a team member responsible for producing content, be it maybe there's an internal podcast you guys have, or photos, or maybe blog editorials. It really depends on your industry. But, someone internally should be producing some content. And then you should have some external partners that are helping you. So maybe that is influencers giving you UGC, or maybe that's an agency giving you some really polished videos, whatever. And then the third is, again, very overlooked, ask your customers. They're going to give you the UGC is so easy to get. You just send an email out and say, send us a picture of you wearing those shoes that are sweet. And then you're going to get a bunch of stuff that you can reuse everywhere.
I was just about to mention that, yeah, user-generated content is a wealth of information, right? There's all these reviews, screenshots, pictures, social, tags, hashtags. You have so many options out there, yet it's overlooked, and for the sake of a well-polished video. I know sometimes you probably would admit that it's better to get something out there than just wait for that kind of crisp,
I've seen
perfected video.
And maybe this is just because this is what I'm looking for, and I like the counterpoint to this stuff. But most of the time on the internet and like on Twitter, what I'm seeing is they're like, yeah, those weird like UGC or like really shoddy iPhone videos that we were just testing outperform that $5,000 like top end production shoot that we did. And it's because people want to buy from people. They like authentic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we were, one of our mentors, Josh Nelson at the 7-Figure Agency, his motto is better done than perfect. So just getting it out there, even if it's not the best video that's ever been shot, like you said, high production value, just get something out there, get content, build your own network so that you can help. And for brands and e-commerce shops, it's just the more that you have out there, the better off you're going to be. So yeah, absolutely. So if you can give us, one way that you've helped businesses work smarter, not harder. Our podcast is all about the 80-20 principle. Tell us what your go-to is for helping your clients and the businesses that you work with work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to scaling, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, like the number one way to increase your return on ad spend is to make your website better, make that experience better. So, we like to focus on that experience. Conversion rate comes down to the customer journey and performance. We love diving into the data and figuring out where the stuff's goofy. And then on the average order value stuff, that's where we get to be creative, right? And we get to figure out some of these offers and test things with our clients. And through a combination of those things, just lifting each of those 10% is going to lift the whole business like 20 or 35% at the end of the day. So, those iterative improvements and just compounding growth are really game changing.
Is there sorry, Isaac, is there just a follow-up to that? Is there one area of marketing strategy that you deal with, or you as Electric Eye deals with overall marketing strategy, helping your e-commerce businesses overall? Yeah,
these days we are super narrowly focused in on Shopify optimization, like the store. So design development and like conversion rate optimization. We're mostly referring a lot of the marketing efforts out to other partners in the industry that we feel do a great job in that stuff. So no more managed marketing services anymore. We're all in on kind of just let's make this store better.
Yeah, every agency out there used to be a full-scale digital marketing agency. We do everything, and then you really just don't do anything well. So
you know what? This is fairly new. This is the first time I've actually talked about it on a podcast. It's a fairly new thing, but it really is. I think it's when you're young, you want to like get things going and like just do anything for money. Kind of, you got to pay the bills, and the team's expensive. But once you narrow down your focus, your offer becomes really easy, your messaging becomes really easy, your process becomes really easy, and the efficiencies that are awarded to a narrowed offering are infinitely scalable.
For sure.
Amazing. Yeah,
I've also read your mentor's book.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we like the book. It's around here somewhere. It's fascinating you saying that, because that's like Jakob mentioned, it's the 80-20 rule. It's like you're focusing on AOV or conversion, and that's it. That's all your focus is on, and just one basis point improvement on that will allow you to really grow your revenue ridiculously well.
Yep,
so
we just want to make stores better.
Make stores better. Yeah, make stores better again. So one thing, question, considering I'm from the retailer world for the most part, you're from direct to consumer, who would you say are some of the top brands that are really doing it well out there?
Ooh, yeah, doing it well. One that does AOV stuff well, and I think I use this as an example in my ebook, is Unbound Merino. They do some really subtle upsell stuff all throughout their website, and I think it's really cool. So like one example is they've just got like basic plain merino wool t-shirts, and if you're on the single t-shirt page, there's a subtle like buy 3 and save like right under the add to cart button, which is just such a simple idea, but no one's doing it, man. Like, so like those things are fun, and they've got upsells kind of throughout each part of the funnel, and it's tasteful. It's not like jarring. And that's the thing, like people want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. So I think a lot of the off the shelf solutions in the ecosystem are a little jarring. The branding is going to be off. It's not going to match the rest of the UX of the website. And then it takes people out of the experience, and they're like, well, no. But if you can do it and it's on brand, and it seems like you're doing them like a favor and it should be happening, like that's when you're going to find wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
Okay, just we're coming up on time here, and I just wanted to, help our audience find you on social and on the internet. Where can our audience find you?
Absolutely. So if they like the ramblings of a madman, they can check out the podcast, honestecommerce.co, and you can find it everywhere podcasts are. Just search Honest Ecommerce. And most of the time, I'm interviewing brand founders. We're telling that story, and you can hear exactly what they did to scale their businesses. Like, and I'm not putting words in their mouth. This is how they did it, and that's the honest truth, right? That's what I want you guys to know. You're not going to get rich quick drop shipping and get that Ferrari. It's not like that. And then if you think that you might be a good fit to work with the agency, you can check us out at electriceye.io.
Awesome. And you, Chase Clymer, where can you be found on LinkedIn, Twitter? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm actually probably for work stuff. I'm 100% most active on Twitter. It's just Chase Clymer. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but I am terrible at responding on there.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and hope this was insightful for our audience, and hope you enjoyed it as well.
Had a blast. Thank you so much.
Okay. This has been another episode of the Ecom 80/20 podcast. I'm your host, Jakob Rosenberg, with my partner, Isaac Hyman, and we help e-commerce businesses work smarter, not harder. Our special guest today was Chase Clymer from Electric Eye Marketing Agency, and also the host of the Honest Ecommerce podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week, everybody.